Hello, my name is Imogen Caterer and I am the admin for the Operational Case Study May 2018 Facebook group. Formerly it was called the February 2018 Facebook group for Operational Case Study. I just renamed it when people started joining for the new case study. I passed the Operational Case Study in February 2018, and for those who find this important, it was a first-time pass. Arguably that makes me less knowledgeable than somebody who'd failed the first time and was now resitting it. But anyway, yes. I'm going to go through very briefly this thing. I don't think there's much I can add on the operational case study itself. Many people are heavily learning provided by learning providers. So briefly, it's a highly technical exam. I highly recommend you look at the past papers as a guide to what is required. If you've been told you have to analyse the full pre-scene before doing a past paper, I assure you that is a myth. You can use those past papers and sort of use them alongside your own pre-scene. So, for instance, one of them was kind of looking for a new supplier of something for cars, and that wasn't appropriate, so I did a new supplier for lead oxide, which was a key issue potentially at King Crystal, the company for the February 2018 pre-scene. Yes, the amount of work involved, well, if you get the official Kaplan textbooks for F1, P1 and E1, and you look at their number of pages, they have 56% more pages than the famously long novel War and Peace by Leo Tolstoy. So yeah, there's a lot of material there. Plus you've got the pre-scene, plus you will probably be told by your learning provider to write, long stretches, relatively long stretches of text. You'll be told you need to put more headlines in. You'll be told, basically whatever you do with some learning providers, you'll be told you have to write more, okay? That's just, how they do it. So I hope that's a good basic overview of the exam. I haven't done it's 3 hours long, etc. But that's my overview. I don't think I can add much more to that. I do find it useful to have a good understanding of what the underlying exam is, because you can then chuck out some of the advice from the learning providers. Industry analysis, by the way, scores 0 in the exam. Okay. I did use industry analysis in my exam though. It's sometimes useful for filling out arguments. Now, let me get to a different skill set. Let me talk about something that I think can make a huge difference for you. Because the learning providers, if you use them, will give you huge amounts of advice. But consider this story. You're walking down a lane, and suddenly a car, which is just covered, and I mean on the windscreen too, with mud, okay, hurling towards you, suddenly stops and says, the man comes out in a huge hurry and says, "Can you help? I've got this problem and I need it solved to get to the hospital." Okay. What would you do? I mean, you might try and solve the problem, but what would you do? Would you do anything else apart from that? Would you perhaps suggest that they clean their windscreen? I don't know whether you've ever sought advice, you've had a personal problem or something, and you wanted help with it, and people then, you know, give you lots of advice as to how to solve this personal problem. And you probably take none of it, or you take the wrong bits, or you misapply it, and guess what? Situation gets worse. That's a bit like giving somebody advice or directions to hospital. So that was the piece of information they needed, sorry. In the story, directions to hospital. I said, there's no point in giving them directions to hospital until they've cleaned their windscreen, until they've calmed down enough to take it in and follow it and not have an accident on the way there. That can be a very quick process, but it does need to happen, okay? Now, a lot of it is, I see people post up in the group and also in the UK SEMA group, which is the main one I watch apart from the group, and they go, help, give me help and advice and whatever on the operational case study. Well, breathe first of all, you know, and then this stuff becomes more helpful. Otherwise, they might latch onto the wrong advice and overdo it. I had a case actually with the February 2017 exam. Somebody who, I assume she passed because she was so close previously to passing. I hope she did. But she totally filled her head with every bit of information, every this, that and the other. And a week before the exam, Nick Best of Astranti, who I don't have any problem with, by the way, I said Nick Best of Astranti put out a video and having to mention it would be good to learn some industry analysis. So she said, oh, give us some industry analysis. I don't know anything about it. Can you tell me this? And it's just kind of, I said, no way. I mean, I had their industry analysis. I said, no way am I telling you anything on industry analysis. You have way too much up in your head. I can't remember exactly those words I said. Somebody came in and said industry analysis has no marks on the OCS. Occasionally useful for filling things out, by the way. But that's it. Gosh, don't study it. So that's it. It's people rush in and they said if she failed, I don't know whether she passed or failed. If she failed, it would have been on mental state, I'm sure. That's the problem people get into, and they post and ask for, you know, help. Where do I start? What do I do? Give us tips, which often doesn't get replied to, actually, I notice, because where do you start? And, you know, that's it's not going to work for them. So where is this sort of overthinking, spinning coming from? I think at core, at essence, this is I know it's fear at core and essence actually, but of which sort of fear, I'm not sure there are sorts of fear, but for convenience, let's talk about one bit of fear, okay? Fear of failing, okay? You know, it has about a 50% failure rate, this exam. It's a tough exam, okay? There's lots to learn, high skill level, whatever. It is just a difficult exam in a sense. There's all this fear around. Okay, now I had this fear in the run up to the exam. I kind of broke out of it, and I'll get to that in a moment. And then I live with the fear, as it were, every now and then when I thought about it, after I had sat the exam and before I had the result. First of all, after the exam, which is the main period I'm going to be talking about now, I was always very good at remembering that I paid CIMA quite a bit of money to mark this exam, and therefore they could mark this exam. But I did occasionally fall into the belief that I had failed, and what was that like? Well, for me, I can tell you the anatomy of that was this. I wasn't too bothered if I had to redo the accountancy, because I had relearnt to love accountancy before the operational case study examiner. Part of the same story that I will tell in a moment. And therefore I wasn't that bothered by that. But wow, the pride that it would have been a big knock to my pride. Okay, I could feel it, I could sense it. Oh no, I do not wish failure. Well, what am I telling myself? That my self-worth was in passing exams? Yeah, that was pretty much it. Pretty much that. I could not cope with the prospect of failure. Except eventually I found I could. So be it. If I fail, I'll just reset it. Okay, I'll just relearn the accountancy, which is great because I like accountancy, and I will sit it. Then I wasn't unnerved about the exam. Granted, my way of dealing with pre-result nerves was to go and get myself totally distracted by something else, which I was hugely anxious about. But I had lost my problem with the exam, and I had lost, in the run-up to seeing the exam, I lost some of my fear as well. What I was going through at that time, and there's another video on this somewhere hanging around about me, just getting fed up with the amount of, I was getting lots of feedback that I wasn't adequate, that I wasn't doing well enough, that I wasn't doing this, that and the other. And I just blew up in a mock exam, to be honest. This is a badly written exam, I took the view, and this is wasting my time when I should be revising F1. I had got to this point of, at least of getting to a point of sort of wisdom and getting in touch and going, actually, I know I'm weak on F1. I must go back to revising F1. And then the mock exam sort of deadline was coming up, and I said, well, I should do the mock exam. And I was in no state to do the mock exam. I was tired and I was fed up and what have you. And I went and did that mock exam and blew up in the middle of it. But the great thing about that is that I sort of cast off all the stuff around, following the learning provider slavishly and taking it terribly seriously, what sort of feedback they gave me, much of which was actually not right because they were marking me on the wrong marking sheet. But I went through this, and excuse me, I just went from trying to deal endlessly with my perceived inadequacies to going, I've got something here, I've passed these papers, I have an understanding of the operational case study, there's lots here that I can do that is inherently good, and I just need to polish things up. I'll just polish things up so I go into that exam in peak performance. And some of that, please, is having a rest and having a break. People flogging their guts out, keeping 16,000 things right at the top of their memory where it's actually getting in the way of them processing and understanding life. Okay? You need to get things from the bottom of your memory You do need to revise up. You're just relying on your your OT exams, whatever objective test exams, is not enough. You will need to revise up. But what you don't want is it all actively going off in your brain, you know, because you can't deal with that. You can't process that properly. What you need is something so your memory's ready and primed to give you the information, okay? And yet you have clarity of mind. I went into that exam super calm, okay, and fully prepared to fail. But I was going to be the finance officer of King Crystal. And my focus was in serving those characters in that case study to the best of my ability. I had done my revision. I had done what I needed to do, in my view, or the best I could. And if it was fail, I would accept it. And if it was pass, I'd accept that too. And that's it. Now, some of you will go, where is the technique that will take me from here, where I'm panicked and nervous, okay, to calm, serene and whatever? Well, you don't have to be calm and serene for a start, okay. Thought flows. So you go from mental state to different mental state all the time, and I've been in several during this video. And the key to moving into more productive states, surprisingly, you've already done it. Particularly if you've just listened to this video and thinking, you know, what's she on about? Okay, rather than, what is this telling me what to do? How do I do? What do I do? What do I do? What do I do? That doesn't work very well, because what I'm giving you is a description of how the mind works. It comes from a man named Sydney Banks. Now, he's much better at this than I am. Unfortunately died, but there are recordings available of him. Sydney Banks had an enlightenment experience into how the human mind works. Enlightenment should not be considered to have religious context in this meaning in this context. Okay, he just had a massive insight, basically, a massive insight into, and he started talking about this. And I've had lesser insight, but I can speak a little bit to how this pans out in the operational case study. Just by listening to this and stepping back from it and getting on with your life, rather than dwelling it over and over in your mind, clogging it up, okay, you may suddenly find their insights. You suddenly go, aha, so I'm just working too hard. And perhaps by working too hard, or my fear of failure is just driving me in completely the wrong direction, that I can relax and chill out, because the worst that happens to me is I reset. And even if you've got a load of additional stories around that, like, oh well, my employer would hate it, be aware that things have gone wrong in your life before. Come on. And so often they turn out to be good in the long run. You don't know. You're going to have to sit with it. Feel free to watch this video. If you want to comment below and say, what the heck is this stuff? Wow! Can you tell me more? Can you point me in other directions? Where else can I learn this stuff? I'd be delighted. But I'm not going to give you the list now. It's a long one. I'll give you some tips. Or how can this help my relationship with my dog? Or, I mean, anything like that. This is what I'm trying to teach you. What I'm trying to say here is a human universal. Yeah, that's right. It'll even help with F2. It's a human universal. F2, relationships, business. amazing results in business, prisons, all sorts of things. Where there's a human, this stuff can help. The correct understanding of the human mind. Just as a correct understanding of how disease spreads, that saved thousands of lives. Germ theory saved thousands of lives. So there's a paradigm shift between believing that his bad smells cause illness to little microbes which you can wash off, and don't put any sewage in the Thames, that sort of thing. Okay? Save thousands of lives. This is a paradigm shift on how we see mind and how we see what makes us happy. Because, strange that it may seem, you could pass operational case study and still not be happy. Or you could fail operational case study and be extraordinarily happy. Tell you one thing, on my results day, well, basically I had a lie-in because I couldn't be bothered to check my email. But on results day, whether that had been pass or failure, would not have ruined my day. Chill out. Pass or fail, you're still an extraordinary human being. Thanks for listening.